In this math tutorial, we want to solve alpha, where we have 2, the root of sine alpha is equal to 1. And we're also given the restriction that alpha is between 0 and 360 degrees. So don't get too nervous about the square root. It helps sometimes to just rewrite the equation. So we have 2 root sine alpha is equal to 1. So the first thing that we can do is get rid of the 2 in front of the square root. So we divide both sides by 2. So root sine alpha is equal to a half. Next, we can get rid of the square root. And what we would do is we will square both sides. So if I square a square root, I'm left with sine alpha. And on the right-hand side, a half squared would become 1/4. So sine alpha is equal to 1/4. So this question is actually a general solution where we need to solve alpha with a restriction. Also, what I want you to notice is that the square root will always give us a positive answer. So our answer is not plus minus 1/4. So we need to be careful. A square root cannot have a negative value, so we won't consider negative 1/4. That is one of the common mistakes that students would make. So if this is a general solution, we can identify the quadrants in which sign would be positive. So that is quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So from our Cartesian plane, we know in the first quadrant everything is positive, and in the second quadrant only the ratio of sign would be positive. That's why I identify quadrant 1 and 2. Next, I will try and find a reference angle. So I'll use my calculator and I put in shift sign and I put in the value of 1/4, and this value is 14.48 degrees. Now remember, the reference angle in a general solution will always be an acute angle, meaning between 0 and 90 degrees. Now in order to answer this question for the restriction, I know I need to consider quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So for quadrant 1, we have alpha is equals to 14.48 degrees. And for quadrant 2, we have alpha is equals to 180 degrees minus the reference angle, and that is 165.52 degrees. Now the reason why we say 180 minus is if I have my Cartesian plane, we know that the second quadrant can be represented as 180 degrees minus theta, or a reference angle. And this comes from reduction formula. And that's our final 2 values for alpha. We do not need to consider quadrant 3 or quadrant 4 because sign would be negative in those quadrants.